Welcome back to the Scaredy Cat Guide, my friends. My name is Jenny, and today we are talking about Big Thunder Mountain Railroad in Disney's Magic Kingdom. If you're new here, this is the channel where we talk about theme parks and anxiety, we talk about sensory issues, and really just anything that you might want to know if you're an anxious rider, like I am. Now, I have been waiting patiently for Big Thunder Mountain Railroad to open once again. It has been under refurb for quite some time, and I'm so excited that it's open. This is actually the first time I've been on it since it reopened. So without further ado, let's dive into those details. This wildest ride in the wilderness contains high speeds, a few sensory elements, and of course, as a little coaster, its fair share of twists, turns, and drops. So let's start off by talking about the coaster itself. Now, the funny thing about this attraction is that on paper, it's almost exactly the same as Seven Dwarfs Mine Train right across the park. Just to put that into perspective, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad has a top speed of 35 miles per hour, while Mine Train is just slightly slower at 34 miles per hour. The drops and maneuvers are also extremely similar, making the actual intensity almost identical. Now, what does set this attraction apart is the overall vibe. Of course, the theming is quite different between these two coasters, and the maneuvers themselves, while definitely similar in intensity, do feel pretty different from each other. What you can expect on Thunder Mountain is more of a playful, whippy sensation as you bump over unexpected hills and tight turns. In my opinion, this track feels a lot more surprising in a way, due to the fact that you really can't see what's coming around every corner. Now, all that to say, this is still very much a family coaster with an overall pretty mild intensity. The drops aren't terribly high, and the speed really isn't all that fast. However, it's still an incredibly fun time because of its really amazing design. Now, moving right along, let's talk about some of those very minor sensory effects. Now, honestly, I found the original version of this ride much more overstimulating. Specifically in the first cave area, there used to be this very loud shrieking bat noise on top of the darkness and that super jarring and noisy lift. To me, it was a sensory nightmare, and I'm happy to report that all of this is much more toned down in this newest update. That's not to say, of course, that we're free of any sensory elements. Of course, we do have some new colorful visuals, and still a good bit of theming and sound design in the two cave scenes. But to me, they seemed a whole lot less intense in the sensory department. Now, while we're talking about those lifts, it is important to note that there are two of them. One for each of these dark cave scenes. To me, lifts are historically pretty uncomfortable just because they really ramp up that anticipation factor and can feel pretty long and drawn out. Now, the theming here does help matters, at least to me, because at least we have something to look at. But my one complaint with indoor lifts is that they do tend to be a good bit noisier since we are technically in a pretty enclosed space. Now, luckily, these do move pretty quickly, and like I said, I do find them quite a bit less jarring than they were before the refurb. Now let's talk about those ride vehicles. So what we have here is a 5-car train seating 4 riders per car in 2 rows. Now we of course have a standard lap bar, but to me it doesn't feel too terribly confining. If anything, it's very standard based on other coasters that you may have encountered in Disney World. Now when it comes to the ride duration, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad clocks in at 3 minutes and 20 seconds long. Now this is pretty standard for a coaster, maybe even a little bit on the longer side. To me, strangely, this coaster feels a little bit longer than some of the other ones that you've encountered in Disney World, and I think the reason for this is that it's actually pretty slow paced. To me, Thunder Mountain feels very segmented, especially with the 2 lifts. We've also got some changes in speed, and there are parts of this coaster that really don't move very fast at all. Although in my opinion, this just makes for an even more fun coaster experience. And regardless, if you are nervous about any of the elements that we've been talking about here, you can rest assured knowing that you will be on and off this coaster in just a few minutes. And now that you have all the facts, let's actually go hop in line. Now, the line has definitely been on the longer side, especially since the reopening, but it's totally worth it. It doesn't feel too hot out here today. We've at least got some nice cloud cover, so let's go get in line together. I can't wait. You'll find the entrance to this attraction in Frontierland in Disney's Magic Kingdom. Now, the thing about this queue is that it is entirely outside. There is, of course, some cover from the sun, and most of the line is covered, thank goodness. However, for some reason, this queue has always been historically very hot. In my opinion, it's because the line stays in one pretty small area. We've got a lot of body heat going on, all of that lovely Florida humidity and the hot sun. It can really make for a pretty hot experience, and sometimes I wonder if that cover even intensifies the heat. We do have a few little fans here and there, but just be prepared, this is really hot, it tends to be pretty stuffy, and overall it's just not one of my favorite queues in Disney World. Now, once you do enter the line, you will just wind around back and forth in a lovely little themed area. The very first part of the queue is out in the open sun, but very quickly you'll find your way underneath this covering. Now from here, there's really not much to speak of. You will just wind back and forth underneath this covered area until you make it to a ramp leading you down into the loading station. Now to me, this was the most uncomfortable part of the queue because you can be stuck on this ramp for quite some time and it's easily the most enclosed space in the whole queue. I personally didn't feel too terribly claustrophobic. It was the heat that really got me. Now it is full-blown summertime here in Orlando, Florida, but I think that enclosed space with all the people around me, it just almost was too much. And I'm somebody that can handle heat pretty well. So just be prepared. I cannot stress this enough. This queue is incredibly hot and can definitely be pretty uncomfortable. However, once you do make it down this ramp, you will be ready to board. A cast member will send you on into a lane and you'll prepare to hop on the train. Now, before we get into the ride itself, just a reminder here, if you are looking for a scene-by-scene breakdown of the actual ride, I do have a POV video up on the channel right now, so go check that out if you want to see exactly what to expect and when to expect it. Now, once this ride does set off, you will immediately end up in this dark cave-like area where you'll find your first lift. Now, we do have some beautiful new visuals to look at, a very colorful cave. To me, those very shrill bat noises were definitely toned down, and even though the lift itself is pretty darn noisy, I found this section to be pretty bearable. Now, once you make it to the top of the hill, the coaster can truly set off. Now, just like Mine Train, Big Thunder Mountain is really just a series of twists, turns, and little drops. Like I said, the maneuvers can feel a little bit whippy and surprising, but in a really fun and playful way. You'll be bumping over little hills and going around tight turns, all the while never speeding up past 35 miles per hour. So it definitely doesn't feel really intense or anything like that, but it can be just a little bit disorienting. But in my opinion, it adds to the fun. Now, about halfway through the attraction, you will come across the second lift where we also have some very cool theming. Now, once you reach the top of this lift, you will once again plunge downward and go through just a few more maneuvers that are very similar to the first half of the ride. Now, after about 3 minutes and 20 seconds, this ride will come to an end and you will pull right back into the loading station. Now, a cast member will direct you off and you'll make your way towards the exit, which of course, like many other rides, is very straightforward. You will simply make your way outside and end up right back into Frontierland. And there we have it. What do you think about Big Thunder Mountain Railroad? Have you ridden it since it's reopened? To me, it definitely kept the same essence, the same very fun experience that it's always had. The changes to me were definitely improvements, and it still felt like I was riding the exact same ride, maybe just a little bit less jarring. One thing I've always loved about Big Thunder Mountain is the theming. It's just so incredible, so immersive, and to me, extremely nostalgic. And the fun little whippy maneuvers, I just think this is one of the best coasters in Disney World. Just my opinion. But I want to know what you think, so don't forget to let me know in the comments below. Now, as always, if you liked this video and you would like to see more like it, don't forget to like, subscribe, stick around, stay a while. We would love to have you in our little community of anxious riders. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.